Some victories are so big they become famous stories. For the Zulu Kingdom, that moment was the Battle of Isandlwana in January 1879. They had fought the most powerful empire on earth, and with pure bravery and smart plans, they had wiped out a modern British group. It was a win that shook the foundation of colonial power. After that amazing success, the Zulu warriors, the Impis, felt unbeatable. They believed their king Eshowe was supreme and that the red-coated invaders could be thrown back into the sea. But winning can be a dangerous trick. While the Zulus celebrated, the British Empire didn't fall apart. It pulled back. It gathered its strength, fueled by sadness, shame, and a cold, burning wish for revenge. The name Isandlwana became a bad word for British soldiers. A dirty mark that had to be washed away with blood. That cleaning would come just over 2 months later on a muddy hill named Gingindlovu. Here, the proud Zulu army, trusting the plans that gave them their biggest win, wouldn't be charging another scared line of shaky redcoats. They were walking without knowing into a carefully prepared killing field. They were moving forward into a storm of bullets that wouldn't just beat them. It would break the attacking power of their army and crush the spirit of their kingdom. This is the story of that battle. The story of Gingindlovu. The battle that changed everything for the Zulu. The road to Gingindlovu really began in the shadow of Isandlwana. For the British leader, Lieutenant General Lord Chelmsford, the loss was a career-ending disaster and a deep personal shame. He had thought too little of his enemy, split his forces, and failed to take basic safety steps, leading to the killing of over 1,300 of his men. London newspapers were asking for him to be fired, and his replacement, Sir Garnet Wolseley, was already on a ship to take over command. Chelmsford knew his job was hanging by a thread. He was a worried man driven by a desperate need to pull a win out of the jaws of his own huge failure before he was fired. His one chance to fix things was to save Colonel Charles Pearson's group. Pearson's force had set up a fort at an empty mission station called Eshowe, but after Isandlwana, the Zulu army had simply swarmed around them, cutting them off completely. For 2 long months, Pearson and his 1,700 men were trapped with food running low and sickness setting in. They knew a rescue group was coming thanks to a device flashing light signals from miles away. But they were running out of time. For Chelmsford, saving Eshowe wasn't just a military need. It was his only way back. He put together a new strong army at Fort Tenedos. This was no small group. It numbered over 5,600 men, a mix of about 3,400 European regular soldiers and 2,300 African soldiers from the native group. The main part of his army was made up of skilled British groups, the 57th, the 91st Highlanders, and the 60th Rifles. And this time he had sailors from the Royal Navy who brought with them their strict training and some truly damaging modern weapons. But the biggest difference wasn't the men. It was the way they thought. The memory of Isandlwana hung over every decision. Pride was gone, replaced by extreme caution. Having learned the hardest lesson of his life, Chelmsford gave new orders. Every time the group stopped, no matter for how long, they were to form a defensive laager, a square fort made of heavy supply wagons chained together. Inside this wall, the troops had to dig. Every camp was now a dug-in fort with waist-high dirt walls and deep ditches. Ammo boxes were kept open and ready. The march, which began on March 29th, was painfully slow. Heavy rains had turned the land into a muddy swamp, but Chelmsford refused to be rushed. He purposely chose a longer, more open path to avoid any ground that could hide a Zulu surprise attack. This was an army that no longer believed it was unbeatable. It believed in following rules, strict order, and huge firepower. Meanwhile, in his royal village at Ulundi, King Eshowe knew Chelmsford was coming. The win at Isandlwana had boosted his power, but he knew the war was far from over. He sent a large impi, an army of 10,000 to 12,000 warriors with one clear goal: find Chelmsford's group and destroy it just like they had at Isandlwana. Many of these men were veterans of that famous battle, warriors who had tasted victory against the Redcoats. Command was given to Somofo Kazakala and more importantly Dabulamanzi Compand. Dabulamanzi, the king's ambitious half-brother, was a famously aggressive leader. He had led the unapproved and failed attack on Rorke's Drift after Isandlwana. Now he had a chance to erase that failure with another glorious win. As Chelmsford's group crawled through the mud toward Eshowe, Dabulamanzi's impi moved quickly to cut them off. The stage was being set for a crash on a plain hill that would soon be known by a name that echoed the sound of gunfire: Gingindlovu. The Battle of Gingindlovu was a perfect brutal clash between an ancient fighting tradition and the non-stop efficiency of the Industrial Revolution. On the British side, their power rested on one weapon, the Martini-Henry rifle. It was a single-shot rifle loaded from the back that fired a massive bullet. This heavy soft lead bullet wasn't designed to poke through. It was designed to smash. It carried incredible energy on impact, enough to stop a charging man dead in his tracks. A well-trained British soldier could fire it 10 to 12 times a minute. When fired in controlled groups by hundreds of men, it created a solid wall of bullets. At Isandlwana, that power had been wasted. At Gingindlovu, Chelmsford was determined to make sure its scary power was used to full effect. But his army had more than just rifles. They had extra power. The Royal Navy brought 2 Gatling guns. These hand-cranked machine guns, nicknamed coffee grinders, could shoot out hundreds of rounds per minute. They were terrifying weapons, both physically and mentally. Backing them up were 2 9-pounder field guns and 4 24-pound rocket tubes. The cannons could break up groups at a distance, while the rockets, though famously inaccurate, screamed through the air and scared the enemy deeply. This was a collection of weapons designed to destroy an attacker long before they got close. The Zulu army, in contrast, was a living part of its society. Every man was a warrior organized by age into groups called amabutho. Their way of war was personal and relied on huge courage, strict formations, and overwhelming shock attacks. Their main weapon was the ikowa, the short, wide-bladed stabbing spear. It was a weapon for close fighting meant to be used after crashing into the enemy line. For protection, warriors carried the ishlangu, a large cowhide shield that was surprisingly good against old muskets, but practically useless against the fast bullets of a Martini-Henry. Now, it's a myth that the Zulus only had spears. By 1879, they had gathered tens of thousands of guns, though most were old muskets. Crucially, they had also captured nearly 1,000 modern Martini-Henry rifles at Isandlwana. But having a weapon isn't the same as mastering it. The Zulu warriors had almost no training in shooting. A common mistake was setting the rear sight to its highest position, thinking it made the bullet more powerful. This just caused their shots to fly harmlessly over the enemy's heads. For the Zulus, guns were for making noise and causing confusion. The real work, the deciding part of the battle, was supposed to be done up close with the ikowa. Their plan was the scary horns of the beast. It was simple and brutally effective. A central body, the chest, would charge the enemy head-on. At the same time, 2 side columns, the horns, would race out to surround and destroy the enemy from the sides and rear. Against the spread-out British line at Isandlwana, this worked perfectly. The Zulu commanders, Somofo and Dabulamanzi, planned to do the exact same thing at Gingindlovu. They had no idea they were about to attack a formation specifically designed to stop their greatest strength and turn it into a deadly weakness. On April 1, 1879, Chelmsford's group reached a spot near the royal village of Gingindlovu. He chose a low ridge for his camp, a position that offered clear views for shooting in every direction. As night fell, so did a heavy, soaking rain, but nobody was resting. Following orders, the troops got to work strengthening the camp. 120 heavy wagons were chained into a tight rectangle, about 130 yards on each side. The men dug a 4-foot-deep ditch around the entire outside, using the dirt to build a waist-high wall to fire from. This was the fort born from the nightmare of Isandlwana. The north side was held by the 60th Rifles, the west by the 99th Regiment, the south by the 57th, and the east by the 91st Highlanders. At the corners, the weakest points, the heavy weapons were placed, the Gatling guns and rocket tubes placed to cover the sides with crossing fire. That night, the tension was thick. Chelmsford's chief scout, John Dunn, a European who had lived in Zululand for years, was convinced the impi was close. He and an officer snuck out of the laager, swam the swollen Nizane River, and found the entire Zulu army camped just a few miles away. They barely escaped and raced back to tell Chelmsford the attack was coming in the morning. Some of the Zulu commanders had wanted to attack at night, but Dabilamanzi convinced them to wait for dawn. A deadly decision. At 4 a.m. on April 2nd, the British got ready. Every man was in position, staring out into the pre-dawn darkness. A thick fog covered the wet land, cutting vision to just a few yards. The air was dead silent. Having received Dunn's report, Chelmsford made a key decision. He wouldn't move to Eshowe. He would wait and let the Zulus come to him. As the sun rose, the fog began to burn off, slowly showing the land. Around 5:45 a.m., lookouts from the native group came sprinting back to the laager. A few minutes before 6 a.m., the final report came. A native soldier, eyes wide, pointed to the horizon and said one chilling word, "Impi." And there they were. As the last of the fog vanished, they saw a great black mass moving to the northeast, the left horn of the Zulu army. Then to the west, sweeping over a rise called Umasai Hill, came the rest of them. The huge central chest and the powerful right horn led by Dabilamanzi himself. A British watcher said it looked like a line of bushes bordering a stream until he realized the stream was moving. It was a river of black shields and feathered headdresses. A silent, strict mass of over 10,000 warriors spreading out to surround them. They picked up speed, breaking into a steady run, the ground shaking under their feet. The horns of the beast were coming, just as Chelmsford had prayed they would. Inside the laager, there was no panic, just serious readiness. Officers walked the line, their voices low and steady. "Hold your fire, lads. Hold your fire. Let them come." The Zulu charge began. In 3 huge columns, the impi swept forward, a human wave, aiming to drown the small British square. The warriors chanted, a low hum that grew into a deafening roar. They beat their spears against their shields, creating a terrifying rhythm. From the cover of tall grass, Zulu shooters started firing, their shots kicking up dirt or whistling high overhead. But this was just a start to the real threat, the rushing wave of warriors closing the distance with terrifying speed. Inside the square, the British officers kept iron control. The soldiers of the 60th Rifles on the north face watched the Zulu chest bear down on them. The order came down the line. Wait for the range. 400 yards. 350. The tension was almost unbearable. Then at about 300 yards, the command finally rang out. Fire. The result was instant. The entire northern side of the laager erupted in a single crashing shot. A thick wall of white smoke billowed out, but the sound told the story. The front rows of the charging Zulu chest simply vanished, smashed to the ground as if hit by an invisible hammer. The pure force of the big Martini Henry bullets threw bodies backwards, creating horrible wounds. The charge didn't stop so much as it was destroyed at its front edge. Before the Zulus could recover, the machines took over. At the corners, Royal Navy sailors cranked the handles of their Gatling guns. The rapid rattling sound filled the air as streams of bullets poured into the thick Zulu groups, tearing through shields and bodies. One older supply officer, told by a younger sailor to fire faster, reportedly growled back, "Fire quicker, be damned! Wait till the black come thicker!" before letting loose the gun's full fury. At the same time, cannon shells and screeching rockets slammed into the warrior crowds, adding to the mess. Yet, the Zulus' courage was almost beyond belief. They didn't break. With incredible bravery, they tried to press the attack, climbing over the growing piles of their own dead and wounded. They went to ground, using any cover they could find, but their charge had lost its energy. The storm of bullets was too thick, too non-stop. The attack on the north face finally weakened and flowed around to the west, where it joined with Dabila Manzi's right horn for a new attack. Here the exact same scene happened again. Ordered group fire from the 99th Regiment combined with the sweeping fire from a Gatling gun met the charge with another solid wall of death. On the other sides of the square, the 57th and 91st Regiments met the Zulu left horn with the same destroying shots. The horns of the beast, the tactic designed to surround and destroy, was being surely broken apart. The Zulus just couldn't get close. The nearest any warrior got to the British trenches was about 30 yards. Most were cut down much further out. The whole attack lasted for maybe 20 minutes, but in that short time, the best of the Zulu army was mowed down. The pure weight of fire was something they had never imagined. The spirit that had carried them at Isandlwana shattered against this unbreakable fortress of fire and steel. The charges weakened. Warriors began to hesitate, then fall back. The roar of the attack died down, replaced by the screams of the wounded. Seeing them crumble, Chelmsford seized the moment. The gates of the laager were opened, and the soldiers on horses galloped out to chase them. The Zulu retreat turned into a panic. The horsemen, thirsty for revenge, rode down the fleeing warriors without mercy. By 7:30 a.m., it was all over. The battle that was meant to be a repeat of Isandlwana had become a slaughter. As the smoke cleared, the brutal truth of the battle became obvious. The cost was horribly one-sided. Inside the British laager, deaths were incredibly light. Around 13 men were killed, including a couple of officers, and about 50 were wounded. One of the fatally wounded was the commander of the 60th Rifles, Lieutenant Colonel Northey, who was shot in the shoulder. For the Zulus, the cost was terrible. The British counted over 700 Zulu bodies around the laager alone. The horse chase had killed at least 300 more. In total, it is guessed that between 1,000 and 1,200 Zulu warriors were killed in a battle that lasted less than an hour. Hundreds of Martini Henry rifles, many with the markings of the British 24th Regiment, were found on the battlefield, a grim reminder of Isandlwana, their power now turned back against their captors. The immediate result was the rescue of Eshowe. The very next day, Chelmsford marched his men to the surrounded fort. Pearson's tired men watched as the pipers of the 91st Highlanders marched in, signaling the end of their 10-week nightmare. For Lord Chelmsford, the victory was a deep personal and professional proof that he was right. He had proven that Isandlwana was a tactical mistake, not a sign of Zulu superiority. His new careful plan had worked perfectly. But the real importance of Gingindlovu goes far beyond lifting one siege. More than any other battle, this was the moment the tide turned decisively against the Zulu Kingdom. The defeat wasn't just physical. It was mental. Isandlwana had created a powerful myth that the Zulus were unbeatable. It had convinced the warriors that their way of fighting, the horns of the beast, their courage, their skill with the Ikawa, was better. Gingindlovu shattered that myth in 20 minutes of industrial killing. The survivors went home not with stories of glory, but with terrifying tales of an enemy they couldn't even reach. King Eshowe was reportedly furious, realizing instantly that his army's attacking power was broken. Militarily, losing over 1,000 of his best veteran warriors was a blow from which the Zulu army could not recover. This loss crippled Eshowe's ability to launch another major attack. From this point on, the road to the Zulu capital of Ulundi was open. Gingindlovu became the plan for the rest of the war. When Chelmsford moved on Ulundi for the final battle in July 1879, he used the exact same tactic, forming a massive hollow square that methodically destroyed the last great Zulu empire. That final battle was the peak of the war, but its result was already written. The turning point hadn't been at the capital, but on this muddy ridge. Gingindlovu was the battle that broke the back of the Zulu army, drained its spirit, and sealed its fate. If you found this look at a key moment in military history interesting, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe. The Anglo-Zulu War is full of incredible stories of courage, tragedy, and tactical shifts. Let us know in the comments if you'd like to see a full breakdown of the disaster at Isandlwana or the final battle at Ulundi. Your support helps us bring these stories to life. The Battle of Gingindlovu was a direct and brutal answer to the question asked by Isandlwana. Lord Chelmsford, stung by his past failures, traded pride for careful, overwhelming force. The Zulu army, riding high on the confidence of its greatest victory, charged with almost magical courage, only to be met by a level of firepower they couldn't possibly stop. Gingindlovu was more than just a British victory. It was a crushing lesson in the changing nature of war. It showed with scary clarity that the old values of warrior bravery and movement could be made useless by the cold math of speed of fire and technology. The battle saved the fort at Eshowe, but its true legacy was the breaking of the Zulu impi as an attacking force. While the Battle of Ulundi is often remembered as the final act, it was on the bloody fields of Gingindlovu that the fate of the Zulu Kingdom was truly sealed. It was here that the spear was shattered by the bullet, and the brief bright flame of Zulu invincibility was put out forever in a storm of lead.